This was something I've been trying to process, and I think I'm still processing, and emotionally and rationally, what basically happened, and you know, how much of it is actually my fault as well, and then isn't. Yeah, there's a tiny bug. Um, Therapy, couples therapy, psychology, and all that stuff. I was a big fan of psychology, so the first time we came across with it, in I think it was high school. I really just, of all the subjects that we had, I loved that one the most, and I did kind of wish to go and study psychology later, but it was just very difficult to get into that university. Anyway, interesting subject for me, neuroscience even more. So I'd say, trying to be as objective as a person can be, I'm well informed. So when me and my ex agreed, and I had to take therapy, of course, because of all the broken down communication as it was perceived at that point. So basically, it was kind of like dynamic between us was working and not working. So pretty clear. So when we started with the therapy, we had talks together and we had talks separate with the same therapist. Now, given the fact that I am just naturally very honest, or too honest, as many people tell me, it's still a mystery to me how, for example, experts that were there for so long, or an expert now. But the point is, every expert always has to work in the background together with a team of people. They can't work alone. So in these terms, I'm gonna stick to experts because later on also more of them got involved. So experts are the ones, in my opinion, that should be the first to notice the major difference between honest and a dishonest person. So there's like consistency, and there is a lack of consistency on the other side. That's usually the biggest giveaway. So people who are lying with themselves, lying to others, and basically by their own nature or mental health problem being deceitful, that's really easier for an expert to see, even, at least in my opinion, and then a person who is really honest. So it normally shouldn't take long, in my opinion, to see that. Now, given that our therapy began during 2020, so it was all via WhatsApp video calls, I can imagine it might have been more difficult for that psychologist to really emotionally connect with either one of us. So, and then also see from a little bit bigger perspective what's going on. I can take that. So then another problem that I might have created in all those conversations is like I was withholding some of the stuff that was happening to me. So basically certain parts of the story and the abuse. And it was basically because all these therapists and couples therapists are first looking into the patterns of attachments. So you have anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, then confused or disordered attachment, which is kind of the mix between the avoidant and the actions and the anxious, and then you have secure attachment. So these are kind of, there's probably more that they will come up with, but the point is everyone develops an attachment to a person emotionally that you're close with, whether it's the children, your parents, your sisters, your friends, and your partners and intimate partners, and so on. So inevitably, even, let's say, I think most people, when they have maybe even just a one night stand, for a short time there is some kind of emotional involvement and maybe short time attachment between these two people, because otherwise, you know, do you really just bang with people for no other reason than just banging? I doubt it. There is always some level of attraction and attachment involved. So never mind attachments. If you see that, you know, communication breakdown is consistent in a relationship, so then you have to start digging into, I hope that's not going to be breaking down my microphone and shit. So the communication breakdown is always going to be there in any kind of relationship that's not working. So obviously you need to start immediately looking into why the communication breakdown is happening. So where's the root cause? Which person is causing more of the negative dynamic and which person is trying to keep things together? So in my case, my attachment from the beginning was always really about family, kids, and this keeping the whole family structure and family cell together. So because my own family was completely shattered, and it's still shattered all over the place, nobody's talking to anybody and stuff, and I felt really important, to me it was important that the family that I will create is going to stick together, be together, one for each other, work together as a team, and so on and so on. So never mind how stressed and how emotional I was at that point, I would have only surrendered, you know, myself and my story to a therapist and someone like that, knowing that they're actually gonna do the right job, that they're gonna help. And that helping means clearly, without me still knowing at that point that I am also a victim, first of myself, of my own codependency that I developed, and then later on also a victim of a person that is really being dishonest and deceitful with themselves and everyone else. Which, like I said, in my opinion, it should have been observed by the expert from very early on, because there's consistency and there is inconsistency, which I also had a big problem with my ex-partner. Never mind any kind of abuse. The biggest thing that was triggering me was contradictions and inconsistencies. When people actually do exactly the opposite of what they say, or they even blame shift that stuff on you. So like they will accuse you of like, you will cheat on me first, and then you end up being the cheated one. That's what happened to me in a couple of relationships before. So it's not maybe relevant only to one relationship. The point is, for me, it's still incredible how, let's say, later on when the things started to escalate, because clearly what I see now when I'm looking backwards at this, and what I see now is my partner at that point was empowered with some sort of knowledge to actually put me down even more, because out of the blue, I was suddenly being called and paranoid and delusional and, you know, like things like that, that terminologies and kind of like the level of intellect that she didn't have before, and she wasn't able to articulate, because at some point, like, I was more into psychology, so I was able to actually, to that point, what my ex-wife would call at that point and later on would call that I'm trying to control her. Well, basically, it was really just trying to get and set boundaries and establish some sort of order and peace at house. So, and structure, of course, for the kids as well. And it just wasn't consistent, it wasn't functioning and stuff, but I couldn't understand why, because I honestly was not diligent enough for myself and also to do more research about what's going on, because the closest pattern that I got to at some point was like borderline personality disorder. Of all the check marks you can go and through and symptoms, you go like, yeah, well, pretty much all of them are there. But the borderline personality disorder is like extremely close to the narcissistic personality disorders and other complex B personalities. So it's like, that's the point where I didn't know. I didn't have personal experience with understanding the dynamics of this kind of relationships. Not that I wasn't involved with them, I was. There was a lot of people who were so-called friends or then family members and stuff who really were just damaged, broken, vulnerable. I mean, vulnerable. We're all vulnerable, but the point is, people get stuck in their victim role. People get stuck in some sort of developmental stage of a child or a teenager, and just either need a lot of help to get out or just can't get out. I don't know. This is where I'm not the expert to say what is possible. I mean, I can imagine, and I think anything is possible. Personally, I believe anyone can be healed, but for a lot of people, it might take a huge amount of effort to actually even start the process with them, because it's only about them acknowledging, like, oh yeah, I'm not it's about like saying I'm broken, but if you at least start to acknowledge that part, to go like, okay, I'm so messed up and I keep hurting other people, it's on me to do work on myself and somehow start controlling that part of myself, which is, you know, intrusive, negative, aggressive, violent, and angry and stuff. The point is, the way I look at it, because we have two principles of psychology here, and I will edit this into the video just for later, or maybe in the community post I will also post the pictures. You have an emotional spiral that's one on the sides. It's like on the upper side and down. So this is where I actually don't like this dualistic approach in everything what we're talking about, because holistically looking, we all are on the spectrum of all emotions and also potential mental health issues. Yeah. So thing is, the up and down principle of emotional spiral. So there in the middle you have kind of like boredom and this kind of level of nothing. Yeah, not this desire to not live, which is at the bottom, but like here in the middle you have boredom, which later can progress into interest, and you start developing and you go further, you get to the happiness and joy and love and unconditional love and all this kind of compassion stuff on the top. Yeah, and then at the bottom, as you go, you've got anger, resentment, and all this guilt, shame, and all of these kind of more negative emotions more at the bottom. So this is the emotional spiral, right? But the issue with that is, like, we always tend to be instructed and visualized to see things from two different polarizations. It's still a one big picture and a perspective. So there is another picture, which is actually more like a circle of emotions. And this is where it's more interesting, because you still have kind of like opposing polarizations, but it's together in one is what makes us human beings. We're so in different colors of emotions. And now the point is, what you can do, everyone can do for themselves, is like, okay, acknowledge one, is like, I feel angry. Why? Find the reasons, find the root cause, and what you can do to transform that into the very next pattern of emotion, which is curiosity or something else. And then, you know, you go towards seeing where you are responsible for your own triggers, and also where you are responsible, at the end of the day, you're responsible for letting people trigger you too much. You know the trigger, you go like, look, I'm sorry, this, what you're saying to me, like, it's not just about disagreements, whether we have political disagreements and stuff. We can have disagreements, but the point is to remain respectful when you're talking to one another. So, yeah, it's difficult. We all are human beings. So at that point, you go like, I'm sorry, I see that I'm getting triggered, I don't like it. And I had these people, at least, are able to acknowledge, like, no, I'm really not ready for this conversation right now, and they leave. And that's respect. You have to understand that it's people trying to at least protect themselves from the idea that they're not ready to hear. And that's also fine. It's really what we need to accept, that people just aren't ready to hear everything and discuss everything in their life. That's fine. The point is, when people start pointing, mocking and stuff. I was also feeling, I was laughing, not at the person, but I smiled and I said, I understand. But if you actually got more over this trigger and sat down and listened more, you would understand what I'm trying to say. Because within 15 seconds, I can throw out a concept and an idea that will try to break down your thought pattern, but not for the intention of triggering you and the purpose of belittling or dismissing your own beliefs. It's about exploring. Why do you believe so? Do you have an actual argument behind it that is logical, reasonable enough? It's not just based on the emotions, and it's not just based on your preference, which is basically a very egotistical principle of looking at the world and the people. So this is where I was like really concerned, was like, how can a person with all of this that I am, because even when I was angry or whatever it is, I still am who I am. I wasn't hiding anything. When you look at this Japanese old saying, they say people have three faces, right? One is the one that we all use in public, at work, and all the public spaces. I agree. I mean, we all kind of carry a mask around because you don't want to really get intimately close to people, yeah, that you don't know. Correct. Yeah. So there is a mask, inevitably. The second one, the second face, is the one you show to your friends and your family and to your loved ones. And then there's the third face that you don't show to anyone. And the Japanese say that this is your true self. And it's really true. Now, I personally have always, just without any specific determination and knowledge, just who I am, who I always was, I've always lived a life where basically I had just one face. Because I do go by life really unfiltered. Which means, yes, if I get pissed off at a stupid driver, I'm gonna tell them and exactly why. Now, how they react to this is actually more pointing down how stupid they are, and immature, and emotional, because they don't get the perspective of like, you put me in danger, you almost run me over with your car, but you're still there trying to protect your own self from someone who is rightfully angry at your lack of driving skills and attention on the road, which has to be done by default. It's your responsibility the moment you sit behind the wheel, because you're driving a killing machine, so you need to pay attention to everyone else but yourself on the road. Actually, when you keep yourself safe, you're keeping others safe. So that's pretty much the principle of driving. So kind of people who tend to go into road rage, where they are actually the one causing that problem, are exactly the people who are going to tell everyone else that they are sick and they need help. So this is where I don't understand how a bunch of experts, except one young, she immediately, when she saw, I think it took her, so this is my point, how much does it take for someone to really recognize the patterns? When this young lady came, and within a couple of weeks she said, I think the two of you developed a codependency pattern here. And I'm like, oh, that is interesting information, because I haven't heard it before. I started to look, and I'm like, oh la la, that is interesting. This is why I can be called, I was called a narcissist by my partner. But then I started to research what is also a narcissist, and I'm like, holy shit. So codependency, narcissist. Why didn't anyone tell us that before? Or even just two codependent people together, it will still be toxic. But the intention of the codependent partner is really to just give yourself. And the intention of the narcissistic partner is to benefit themselves. So when you look at who benefits more from what they have, then you clearly can identify where's the issue at. Definitely both of the partners have their own issues. The codependent partner has issues with their own, some sort of avoidant and attachment issue that is resulting still as toxic, but to protect themselves. Whereas in the other partner, it's always similar pattern, but it's about dominance. It's about asserting themselves. So this is the dynamic here. And it's really ridiculous that when I see from just the videos I'm releasing here and talking to people around because of this stuff, I see exactly the same kind of breakdown in the therapists and experts and coaches and all this stuff. And I must say, and really touchy, very touchy, it is predominantly the wounded females who go into then therapy to help other females. When they specifically focus on the female population. They don't focus on the root cause of the problems and the toxic dynamics and toxic relationships, but they're like, we're going to protect our own flock. Similar problem that Andrew Tate created with toxic masculinity, because it is freaking toxic masculinity on that side, protecting his own flock. That's a breakdown. That's dualism. That's hate. That's warfare. Why? It doesn't work. So anyone that does that, and you see them doing that stuff, call them out. Please do me a favor, call them out, so I'm not the only one. I see guys are trying on media, like on social media like Instagram and other platforms like TikTok, guys are actually trying, but it's all getting suppressed heavily. The only people that are left alone are women, if they talk either about women or guys. And the women that are talking about kind of both and trying to help are getting attention, but still, go and check the comments section and you will see most of them get attacked by the females. Do men do that kind of stuff? Some, yes. And I'm sorry about those guys. They're not men, they are boys, dickheads. And that's it. We have men and gentlemen. And then I have another category, gods and goddesses. Yeah? I have also 5 categories for women, but I'm not going to get myself banned because the last one is a B. So, look, the thing is, at least for myself, one of those mistakes I've done was given my responsibility for myself to another person. And I'm not talking about my ex-wife here. I'm talking therapists. Because there were moments when I felt like, this is wrong. I need to call them out on this. And I didn't. Why? People pleaser. Too polite. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be you. And I'm talking this to remind myself, but I'm talking to remind everyone else who's still stuck around watching this to the end. You're here to be you, unapologetically. It doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong, but if you feel like you need to stand up for yourself, you should. Just don't hurt anybody while doing it. That's it. Don't be an idiot. And when it comes to these experts, that pretty much I think, is it my fault or is it theirs? I think it's theirs. Like, for whatever the cost. I mean, I don't have a lawyer, but the best defense I can have is like, I'm fucking honest, and fuck you. You didn't help. You should have. That's all I can say. Peace out. Love you all.